The first Final Destination film opens with a group of high school seniors boarding Flight 180 for a class trip to Paris. But before takeoff, student Alex Browning has a vivid premonition of the plane exploding, killing everyone on board. Horrified by this vision, Alex begins to freak out, causing an argument between him and his jock bully Carter Horton that gets them both kicked off of the plane. Alex's best friend Todd, Carter's girlfriend Terry, the teacher Miss Luton, the slacker Billy, and the loner Clear Rivers all follow them off of the plane, which explodes on takeoff, just as Alex had foreseen. As the Flight 180 survivors mourn the deaths of their friends, Alex is investigated by the FBI, who are skeptical of his mysterious premonition and believe that he may have been responsible for the plane crash. Meanwhile, a seemingly random chain reaction causes Todd to accidentally hang to death in the shower, which everyone assumes was intentional due to his grief from the plane crash. But Alex is skeptical of this, knowing his best friend would never intentionally harm himself. Alex finds an ally in Clear, the only person who believes in his premonition. The pair visit Todd's corpse in a funeral home where the mortician William Bloodworth explains that Death had planned for everyone to die aboard the plane. But Alex's premonition ruined Death's plans. And so now the very force of Death is coming to claim the lives of all of those that were meant to die. As Alex and Clear tried to warn the other survivors, Carter is resistant to their claims, until his girlfriend Terry is shockingly struck and killed by a passing bus. Next, Miss Luton is killed while cooking dinner, during which kitchen knives accidentally impale her and her home explodes. Alex realizes that the survivors are being killed in the order they were supposed to die on the plane, and after this new string of deaths, Clear, Carter, and Billy all believe that death is coming for them. Carter is still distraught over Terry's death, and upon learning that he is next on Death's list, parks his car on some train tracks in an effort to take his fate into his own hands. But as the train approaches, Carter changes his mind and chooses to live. Unfortunately, his seatbelt becomes jammed, trapping him in the car. Alex manages to pull Carter out of his seat at the last second, right before the train strikes the car and sends shrapnel flying, killing Billy instantly. Alex realizes that because he intervened once again to save Carter, Death moved on to Billy, the next person on its list. As the film comes to a close, Alex races to save the next person on Death's list, his burgeoning romantic partner, Clear Rivers. Alex finds Clear trapped in her car as deadly and loose electrical wires block her escape, while gasoline leaks all around her, threatening to ignite at any moment. Alex risks his life to save Clear, helping her escape death. In the end, Alex, Clear, and Carter all finally travel to Paris together to celebrate their survival. But that's when Alex realizes that death has yet to come for him. As a neon sign falls from a building, Carter pushes Alex out of the way, saving his life. Unfortunately, this means that Death's list has circled back to the beginning, and so the neon sign swings back, killing Carter instantly. The story continues in Final Destination 2, where college student Kimberly Corman is on a road trip with her friends when she suddenly has a premonition of a massive car pileup caused by a logging truck. Kimberly uses her car to block traffic, saving the lives of all of the strangers behind her as the deadly pileup occurs in front of them. As police officer Thomas Burke questions Kimberly about the incident, a truck speeds toward them. Burke pulls Kimberly out of the way at the last second, saving her life, but all of her friends are tragically killed. Following the pileup, Kimberly realizes her premonition is similar to the story of Alex Browning and the survivors of Flight 180 being hunted by Death. And so she sets out to rally her fellow survivors to find a way to stop Death from killing them. Those survivors include lottery winner Evan Lewis, mother and son Nora and Tim Carpenter, the uptight Kat Jennings, stoner Rory Peters, the pregnant Isabella Hudson, high school teacher Eugene Dix, and Officer Burke. When Evan's apartment catches fire while cooking dinner, he flees using the fire escape. Unfortunately, he then slips on some spaghetti he had previously thrown out, and the ladder of the fire escape falls and impales him. Not wanting the other survivors to suffer a similar fate, Kimberly and Burke seek the help of Clear Rivers, who has spent the last year in the padded cell of a psychiatric hospital to avoid death finally coming for her. Clear is grieving Alex, who has also tragically died. Clear then realizes that unlike the survivors of Flight 180, Death is hunting the pileup survivors in reverse order of when they were killed by the logging truck. She then takes Kimberly and Burke to see Bloodworth, who explains that only new life can stop Death. After the teenage Tim is killed by a falling pane of glass, Kimberly, Burke, Kat, Rory, Eugene, Clear, and the grieving Nora all meet up to discuss how they plan on defeating death. They realize they must all protect Isabella to ensure she lives long enough to give birth, thus creating new life and thwarting death's ultimate design. When the emotional Nora tries to leave, she gets her head caught in the doors of an elevator and is tragically decapitated. As the other survivors race to find Isabella, they all realize they had each been fated to die before the pileup, but through strange twists of fate, have their lives spared due to the survivors of Flight 180. Kimberly avoided dying in a carjacking that killed her mother, thanks to being delayed by a news report on Todd's death. Eugene had been sent to substitute for Miss Lu's class following her death, and while he was away, one of his students stabbed his replacement. Kat was supposed to stay at a bed and breakfast the night that all of the inhabitants died of a gas leak, but she never arrived due to her bus striking and killing Terry. Rory had witnessed Carter's death in Paris, causing him to grieve in his hotel room instead of attending a theater, which then collapsed and killed everyone inside. Officer Burke had been assigned to clean up Billy's remains, calling him away from his partner, who was then killed in a shootout. Unfortunately, the survivors then get into a car accident, crashing onto a farm owned by the Gibbons family, which leaves Eugene critically injured and Kat pinned inside the car, next to a broken PVC pipe which nearly impaled her. As rescue workers arrive, Rory pulls the teenage Brian Gibbons away from a noose truck that nearly runs him over. As the fire department tries to free Kat from the car, her airbag explodes, impaling her on the PVC pipe. The dead Kat then drops her cigarette, igniting a gas leak that explodes and causes a barbed wire fence to fly into Rory and horrifically dismember him. Kimberly, Burke, and Clear then race to the hospital, where Eugene is in intensive care and Isabella is going into labor. As Clear visits Eugene, an oxygen tank explodes, killing them both. Kimberly then realizes that Isabella had actually survived the pileup in her premonition, meaning the birth of her child cannot be the new life needed to defeat death. And so Kimberly chooses to sacrifice herself, drowning herself and being revived, meaning that she is the new life that defeats death's grand design. In the end, Kimberly and Burke celebrate their survival with the Gibbons family, but as they joyously eat together, Kimberly and Burke realize too late that Brian's life had been saved by Rory, and so death comes for the teenager, exploding a grill and killing him instantly in front of his horrified parents. In Final Destination 3, high school student Wendy Christensen has a premonition of her fellow graduating classmates, all tragically dying after a roller coaster derailment. Although Wendy manages to get off the roller coaster alongside 9 of her classmates, her boyfriend Jason and her best friend Carrie failed to exit the coaster before its takeoff, and are killed in the ensuing accident. While grieving the loss of her friends, Wendy is visited by Carrie's boyfriend Kevin, who was one of the survivors that evaded death thanks to Wendy's premonition. Kevin explains the history about Alex Browning's premonition, saving the lives of his classmates meant to die in the Flight 180 crash, only for them to all subsequently die in seemingly random accidents. Wendy and Kevin fear that they too will soon be hunted by death itself, and resolve to warn their fellow survivors. After the surviving best friends Ashley and Ashlyn are burned alive in malfunctioning tanning beds, Wendy realizes that photos she had taken of the survivors before their fated roller coaster crash all contain clues for how death intends to kill them. Despite trying their best to use these clues to save their classmates, the sleazy Frankie is killed during a car accident that sends an engine smashing into his head, while the athletic Lewis has his head crushed by gym weights. While Wendy and Kevin warn the goth couple Ian and Aaron on their shift at a hardware store, Wendy manages to save Ian's life, causing death to skip him and kill Aaron with several nail gun shots to the head. In the end, Wendy realizes that her younger sister Julie and Julie's best friend Perry had snuck onto the roller coaster without Wendy's knowledge and gotten off after her premonition freakout. And so Wendy is horrified to discover that her sister is next on death's list, prompting her and Kevin to race to save her. At the town's tricentennial fair, Kevin saves Julie from being impaled, though Perry is not as lucky. Wendy then saves Kevin from dying in an explosion before being confronted by Ian, who blames Wendy for Aaron's death and now believes he is invincible due to death skipping him. As Ian attempts to murder Wendy, she narrowly avoids being struck by shooting fireworks. which knock over a cherry picker that crushes Ian to death. And so, Wendy, Kevin, and Julie have all managed to escape death and are ready to move on with their lives. Unfortunately, 5 months later, Wendy finds herself on a subway train where she randomly encounters both Julie and Kevin. Wendy has a premonition of the train car's derailment, killing everyone on board. In Final Destination 4, college student Nick O'Bannon attends an auto race with his friends, where he experiences a premonition of a horrific car accident that kills many attendees in the stands, including Nick and his friends. Nick manages to get his girlfriend Lori and their friends Hunt and Janet, alongside several strangers, to evacuate before the deadly crash occurs. Following this new tragedy, a racist survivor named Carter blames the racetrack security guard George, a fellow survivor, for stopping him from saving his wife from the accident. As Carter attempts to use his tow truck to place a burning cross in George's yard, the truck begins driving by itself, accidentally pulling Carter by a chain that strikes sparks on the road, igniting and blowing up the truck and killing Carter in the explosion. The next day, another survivor, Samantha, is killed when a lawnmower runs over a rock, inadvertently launching it at her head. Following these deaths, Nick discovers the history of other random people experiencing premonitions that saved them from similar tragedies, only to then be hunted by death for retribution. And so Nick attempts to warn the other survivors and saved them from death. Nick is too late to save a survivor named Andy, who is killed when an oxygen tank launches into him, dicing his body to bits upon a metal fence. Nick and his girlfriend Lori then race to save their friend Janet, helping her narrowly escape from a malfunctioning car wash. Unfortunately, they are too late to save Janet's boyfriend Hunt, who is killed when an overpowered pool drain sucks out his intestines. 4 days later, Nick believes that saving Janet may have disrupted Death's plan, saving the remaining survivors. Unfortunately, he then experiences another premonition of Lori and Janet dying in an explosion at a mall movie theater. This new premonition distracts Nick, who fails to save George from dying by being struck by a speeding ambulance. Nick then races to the mall to save his friends, painfully putting his own life in danger to prevent a fire from detonating explosive barrels, successfully averting another deadly tragedy. In the end, Nick, Lori, and Janet all meet up at a cafe to celebrate having officially evaded death. Unfortunately, Nick then realizes the death had given him the mall premonition as a red herring in a plot to have him and his friends meet at that exact location at that exact moment. Nick is too late to take action as a truck accidentally speeds into the cafe, killing him, Lori, and Janet instantly. The story continues in Final Destination 5. While on the way to a company retreat, Sam Lawton has a premonition of a bridge collapse that kills him and all of his colleagues. Though Sam does manage to save his ex-girlfriend Molly before he also dies in the catastrophic disaster. Forewarned by this premonition, Sam manages to rally several of his co-workers to escape the bridge before its collapse, saving their lives. As the survivors mourn their colleagues who failed to escape the bridge collapse, Sam becomes a suspect of FBI agent Jim Block. When the survivor Candace dies in a tragic gymnastics accident, and Isaac dies during an acupuncture massage when a statue crushes his head, the mysterious coroner William Bloodworth returns to warn the other survivors that death itself is coming for them, and the only way to survive is to kill someone else, thereby stealing their lifespan. Candace's boyfriend Peter begins to emotionally spiral following her death, and contemplates taking a stranger's life to save his own. Meanwhile, Sam and Molly try and fail to save their coworker Olivia, who during LASIK eye surgery is blinded and falls to her death out of a high-rise window. Meanwhile, Sam's friend and fellow survivor Nathan has returned to work at his factory job, where the deaths of many of his coworkers have led to his unlikely ascent to a managing position. When a racist coworker named Roy violently questions his authority, Nathan pushes Roy away, accidentally impaling him on a hanging hook. Sam and Molly realize that by this act, Nathan has stolen Roy's remaining lifespan, saving him from being the next victim on death's list. When the group's boss Dennis arrives to investigate the accident, he is killed by a flying wrench that strikes him in the head. Amidst the threat of death, Sam and Molly rekindle their old relationship. With dreams of becoming a professional chef and taking part in an apprenticeship in Paris, Sam cooks Molly a romantic meal and asks her to join him. Unfortunately, that date is crashed by the further spiraling Peter, who holds the couple at gunpoint, demanding to know why Molly deserves to live while Candace had to die. And so Peter has decided to murder Molly to steal her life. Agent Block intervenes, but Peter kills him. Despite now having stolen Block's life, Peter is determined to kill both Sam and Molly to take out the witnesses of his murder so his new stolen life won't be spent in prison. During the violent struggle, Sam manages to kill Peter, stealing Block's life for himself. In the end, Sam and Molly have now both evaded death and happily board a plane to Paris for Sam's apprenticeship. But as their plane is about to take off, they witness a confrontation between a group of high school students, with one, a stranger named Alex Browning, claiming to have had a premonition of the plane crashing. It turns out the year is actually 2000, and Sam and Molly are unwitting passengers on the ill-fated Flight 180, which explodes upon takeoff, killing them both. And back on the ground, Nathan learns from Roy's autopsy that the man had an undiscovered enlarged blood vessel in his brain that would have caused a deadly aneurysm at any moment. And with that, the wreckage of Flight 180 crashes into Nathan, killing him instantly.